Hello and welcome to Note Doctors. My name is Paul.
My name is Jen.
My name is Ben.
And we are your hosts. We are all university music theory instructors who are passionate about music theory and music theory instruction. In this podcast, we will be talking about all things theory with some of the best music theory teachers in the country. If you want to know more about music theory and the most effective and innovative ways to teach it, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome back to Note Doctors, the music theory and pedagogy podcast. So it has been a minute since we've released an episode. I mean, we have real jobs. I think maybe we need to let people know that, we don't just make podcasts. In fact, we don't even make money, actually. We lose money on this endeavor.
That's a true story.
But that's okay. We're still looking for a venture capitalist to just throw a bunch of money at us. But we've been, had some things going on and just, time got away from us. But we are back with some more exciting episodes. And so our episode today is a good friend from the DFW area, right? So Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. And so that's Dr. Amy Hatch. And so she is going to be talking to us about her teaching and her kind of first year journey at her current position and kind of the ways that she's been able to incorporate some really innovative teaching and pedagogical ideas into her classroom. So you are really going to learn something and get some really cool ideas to hopefully take away to incorporate into your own theory classes as you listen to her speak. And so before we get into the conversation, though, let's get her bio. So Ben, I think you've got that pulled up.
Sure. Dr. Amy Hatch is Assistant Professor of Instruction in Music Theory at the University of Texas at Arlington. She teaches the undergraduate theory and ear training sequences, as well as graduate-level post-tonal analysis, 20th century form and technique, and music theory pedagogy. She serves on the curriculum and noon recital/enrichment hour committees and as a faculty liaison for the music department's Student Advisory Council. She has recently become a certified peer observer for UTA and obtained certification from the Association of College and University Educators, also known as AQ. And I'll add on that Amy was an absolutely fantastic TA for me. I'm so proud of her teaching and all of her work that she's done at UTA.
I became like a certified group exercise instructor in 2019, is what I just mentioned earlier. You have visual learners, you have audio learners, you have kinesthetic, and when we're doing exercises for this class, it's all pre-choreographed, so I have to learn the choreography. I have to do it with them, I have to give verbal cues, and I have to show them what I'm doing. I show them the wrong way, which is like error detection, and I show them the right way to do it. If we're doing a deadlift, you don't want to hunch your shoulders over and round out your back. You want to keep the shoulders back and you want to stay nice and straight. So those are kind of the verbal cues, which on a podcast you can only get the verbal cues, but hopefully you're able to picture that, right? Because of the verbal cues. And that's where I got most of my theory pedagogy from, because we move in music, we talk in music, we sing, we play things, and we listen to things. It's very similar to the exercise industry.
So today we are so happy to have Dr. Amy Hatch on the podcast to talk a bit about her experience in her first year as a full-time tenure-track faculty member. This has been a little bit of a theme for us this spring. And so before we dive into our conversation, we always like to ask our guests a little bit about how they got into music theory. And so was it a children's storybook or anything like that that got you in to music theory or anything like that? I was trying to think of a kid's book that could easily be adapted to music theory, but I can't think of one off the top of my head other than the Two So's in a Row. That's my future children's book, by the way, which is about the cadential 6/4. Because there's two so's in the bass. Every kid needs to know when they hear two so's in a row, Cadential 6-4. But future work. Maybe when I get a sabbatical sometime, I'll write that. But Amy, how did you find yourself as a music theorist?
Well, I guess it all started in undergrad. I was going back and forth between music ed and a BA. And it's really when I figured out, hey, I really like doing music theory. There's got to be a way for me to be able to teach this, right? So I was a music ed major at my school, Texas State. And I went into my upper level review and they said, I don't really see you as a band director. I said, well, I don't want to be a band director. I want to be a music theorist. And that's when that turned into, well, I really need to look at these degree plans and figure out what is going to get me there. And so I turned out to be a BA. I graduated with a BA because we didn't have a music theory degree. And my mentor, Dr. Cynthia Gonzalez, is the one that kind of helped keep me going, and I continued into a master's program there, and she ended up being my thesis advisor. So really I was taking her theory and ear training 1 and 2 classes, and just seeing how methodical she was, and I'm a very organized person, it just really helped bring me into that realm.
We love Cynthia Gonzalez here. Everyone loves Cynthia Gonzalez, actually.
It's true.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
It's great.
Very true. So you are in your first year at UT Arlington, right? And they have this very unique kind of first year orientation that you all go through, all of the new faculty. Is that right?
Right. It's called the Faculty Development Series at UTA. It really starts on the first day with orientation. So you go to orientation, you're put with these people as a cohort. I think we're cohort 22F or something like that. And we continue together through our first year, second year, and third year. We have meetings monthly. We don't have to attend them. I've missed a few of them because they usually occur during times when I have music faculty meetings and student ADCO meetings. So it's not required, but it's a good way to just go check in. All of those workshops are taught by faculty members that are faculty members within the university, but also who work for faculty affairs. So we get to know a lot of people outside of the music department. I even made a friend in chemistry, and we still need to have lunch. Yeah, but we just really clicked right away, and he has a different kind of analytical brain, so it'd be interesting for us to meet up and chat sometime. But it's a great way to meet people outside of the department. That's what I really liked about it.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
And they kind of, as part of that, you do sort of like online classes kind of thing. Is that right?
So the online classes is a separate thing. It's called AQ, which is, I already forgot. We'll have to take that out. It's short. It's short for something that's long. I can never remember the name of it. But it's a course that we put about 50 hours into, and every week the deadlines are soft, but they have the deadlines there so we can implement something new every single week. And that could be anywhere from do a syllabus reconnaissance, or do an icebreaker, do an end of the class activity. So little things like that we implement. So we end up having about 25 total modules. So that's about 25 weeks worth of material. It starts in August and it ends in April. I was lucky. I got ahead during spring break. I did all of my modules, and I've worked my reflections recently, and I actually finished my accreditation this week. So I'm done.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was so many hours, but it does sound like that it's something that's very practical and that you can directly apply into your teaching. So maybe you can give us some ideas on some things for those of us that didn't do all the modules but are just listening to a podcast. What are some things that we could take away from that, and maybe something I could do in theory 2 next week or something?
Right. So a A lot of them applied to music. Some of them were a little challenging to apply to music. The ones that I found the most easy was actually one of the first modules, which was how you start your first day of class. So that includes like a syllabus reconnaissance that I mentioned. It can be like a materials quiz. Those are two things that I did on the first day of class. I did it last semester, and I felt it was more successful this semester because I had more confidence this semester. The first time I did it, of course, I was a little nervous, like, how is this going to go? But when I did it this semester, I feel like they really interacted with me. The students really interacted. So with the reconnaissance, we go in there, and instead of just going point by point through the syllabus, we would say, I'd write up on the board, okay, here's a star, put a star next to 5 things that you think are important. Put an exclamation mark next to things that you're excited about, maybe 2 or 3 things, and put a question mark next to something that you want to know more about or you have a question about. So it's like a little visual aid for them to go through the syllabus, find what's important to them, find what they don't understand. And instead of me going point by point through it, we can just come back together at the end of it. So what I have them do, give them like 5 minutes by themselves to do that. And then I say, go pair up with your neighbor, compare the things that you found were interesting, because sometimes they'd have different interests. Sometimes they'd have different things that they'd choose to be important things. So I'd have them pair up and talk about it. And then we'll come together as a whole class. And I'm like, okay, so what are some important things that you found in the syllabus? And they would tell me. One of the most successful times that I had with it this semester was in my Theory 4 class. So I had a student last semester in my ear training class, never turned in any homework at all. And
We've never had students like that before. I'm just kidding.
I know. And I'm thinking, how can I fix this? I didn't do the syllabus reconnaissance in that ear training class that he was in. So this semester, he comes in and have them go through the important things, and he's the first one to raise his hand. I said, yes, what's important? He says, homework. I said, yes, homework is important. So it's like a verbal contract for them to tell me, this is what's important for your class, and this is what I got to do to be successful, you know? Yeah. Like, homework is such percentage of my grade. If I say it's 40%, if I don't do any of my homework, I'm going to end up with a 60 at most, which is already failing for music, you know?
Yep.
So
that's really interesting. Cool. It kind of reminds me of actually a practice that my father-in-law does in the medical field, which is when people have like health goals. Not that those are the same as music theory goals. Like, by all means, health is more important than music theory. But he said it means more if you ask someone to set their own health goals instead of just your doctor telling you, you know what, you need to eat your vegetables, you need to go out and do your cardio. If the person actually makes the list of what's important to you, there's a lot more ownership of that activity. And I think that part maybe we could take a lesson from in music theory, and it sounds like you have.
Definitely. And you know what? I told them when I was able to take that and explain a little bit, elaborate more on it, I said, you know what? A lot of you will take it as all or nothing. Don't take it as all or nothing. Like, oh, I missed a homework assignment, I'm not going to do the rest for the rest of the semester. Like, that's what happens, right?
It is.
So I told them, I said, don't take it like that. If you miss one, it's not going to destroy your grade. Not doing any of them is going to destroy your grade, but at least do some of them. And so I said, don't take it this way. I said, if you miss some, that's fine, but try to do some. The more you do, the more points you're going to earn towards your final grade. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I've done a syllabus quiz for years, but I like this idea much better. I prefer also to not just like read through it like a bullet point. And especially my university has like about 2 pages of pre-done stuff that must be in the syllabus. And we have no like, I can't delete it if I want to. I would not want to. It's mostly good stuff, but I could not change it or alter it in any way. So they're hearing those things in every single class. But yeah, I like the idea of saying, find the important things rather than me trying to like give them a quiz question that forces them to find the things I think that they should know. And they often get it wrong is the crazy part. I always give them unlimited tries on the quiz. It's an online quiz and they can take it as many times as they want. And it shocks me how many students have to take it like 4 and 5 times for something where the material, they are reading it right in front of them. So yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Does creating this reconnaissance kind of assignment or activity then make you go back and change how maybe the syllabus is worded or structured? Like, I wonder if there's kind of this reflexive relationship. Like, it's not just, okay, just create the syllabus and then, the students should be able to find the things that are important or things like that. But then do you then think about, well, how should I craft this syllabus so that those important things are brought up or the things that they need to know are clearly presented? Does it influence the way that you then create your syllabus?
Yeah, so I've only done it for 2 semesters so far, but I do find that I know what they're finding important, what they're looking at. They definitely look at the course schedule, they look at attendance, they look at grades, how the grades are weighted. And I find that I can add things in there that have been bothering me from the previous semester. Like this semester, I added in my friend, Dr. Elise Kaler. She's the composition professor here. She has a little blurb in her syllabus about how to craft a good email to your professors. And it's very general. And so I was dealing with that last semester. It was just bad. I'd get, hi, Professor Amy. And I'm like, what is this? Where is this coming from? It was off the wall. And then stuff like, it was like they're texting me like, hey, what did I miss today? Like, this isn't an email. So I borrowed that from her. I put that in my syllabus this semester, and during the reconnaissance, they brought that up. They said, oh, we should know how to address you in an email. I said, yes, exactly. So now they're reinforcing that, and I haven't had any problems this semester. It's been amazing. Yeah,
I've done a similar thing, and that does work. I've been so surprised how better the emails are that if you just kind of draw attention to it and let them know kind of what is expected. Now, I was going to ask another question about the syllabus, and I just lost it. Have you had to deal with less questions about things that are answered in the syllabus? So, students respond, like email you like 10 weeks in, so is there extra credit or things like that? Or they miss a test and they don't understand why you can't just give a retake. Have you had to deal with less issues like that?
Yeah, I haven't had any of those kind of emails.
Whoa.
It's insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything we can do
They
to
know what's
reduce
expected.
a number of emails, I think I would have to be in favor of that.
I know. Most of my emails are really just, hey, I can't make it today, blah, blah, blah. Like, they understand that I told them in the syllabus, be communicative with me. Let me know what's going on. We can work something out. So they do. They email me about not being in class.
So maybe one thing that people might be interested to discuss here is some of the unexpected benefits that you have. Sometimes we sign up for a professional development or a particular training, like we're a Hispanic serving institution at UND, and I signed up for a professional development on it. And there were some things that I had no idea that I was going to benefit from having done that training. So from your training at UTA, what are some of the things that you walked in expecting one thing, but then you came out knowing this really cool part or had this cool unexpected benefit?
Yeah. When I hear that question, it actually just brings me back to AQ again. I guess it's still really fresh in my mind, but the unexpected benefit from taking that course was confidence in the classroom. So, I know the material and I've taught these classes several times, but I have that confidence of being able to implement something new whenever I want. Like if some idea comes to me when I'm driving home, then I can implement that idea the next day and quickly. Last week I thought, I can I can teach set theory by just getting some D&D dice that are 12-sided and roll them on the dot cam, and then we can practice normal order that way. So I did it, Amazon Prime, there you go. I've already been doing it in class. So it gives me the confidence to try new things. And if something doesn't work out, my students are really flexible with me. We laugh about it, we move on. Yeah, but
that.
Definitely confidence has very much been an issue, or not an issue, but it's definitely helped me out in the classroom.
That's one thing that I'm trying to instill in my TFs, just graduate teachers is, sometimes they're so hesitant to like change a lesson or like a little guideline that, is made up either by me or one of their colleagues or from a previous year. And I always think, no, if you're not moving forward, you're kind of moving backwards in a certain way. You should always be rethinking it and trying to make it better and change, whether it's your practices or the way your lesson is structured or the content of your lesson or the takeaways. What are the true takeaways of this lesson? That's one thing I've thought a lot about, is sometimes the takeaways are more of the content versus like really truly a synthesis level question or truly a synthesis level takeaway, and really thinking about those things as you redesign lesson by lesson. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
really
that's
good.
something that I've built on this semester as well. Just I'm thinking, like, for my tests, I give the tests back and I just stand there and say, do you have any questions? And I thought, what more could I do to make this better? And so like that program has helped me kind of get a better, my brain just is like constantly going now, like, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to improve that? So now I do, like, I print out the test again and I go through everybody's tests. I only have like maybe 30 students for my 32 class. Sorry, Ben.
Jealous.
So I go through all of those, even like part writing. I'm like, oh, I got a lot of parallel octaves here. I got a lot of parallel fifths here. I'll go through and make a part writing exercise out of all of the errors. And I'll do that for the whole test. I had like non-chord tone identification. Some of them got these 3 wrong, so I put the wrong answer there, and I put it up on the doc cam, and I asked them, okay, here's all the common errors. What's wrong with this? Why is it not this answer? And so we'll go through it. We spent a good 20 minutes doing that this morning in my Theory 2 class, and they're very interactive with me. They're like, oh, that's what I did wrong. I put parallel octaves here. Or they can answer me correctly if I ask what's wrong here, and they're like, oh, it's parallel octaves because I did that. So it's not calling anyone out. And I said, this is not one person that made all of these errors. It's a combination of everybody. So they don't think, oh, somebody's really bad at part writing. It's not like that.
That's really good.
That is
Yeah,
really good.
I've been trying to do something similar where I give like more immediate feedback. So like one thing I'm really big on is obviously safe failure. So I allow students to retake a lot of things, and Amy's very familiar with this, for retaking key signatures or triads or whatever it happens to be, dominant seventh spelling, and one of my former students sent me an article that they just wrote. It's by Mario Wellman and Alexa Silicom. If anybody wants to look it up out there, if you're out there nerding out with us today, look it up. But it's about when you give feedback, and a lot of times if you have feedback that's like a week after you've submitted something, it doesn't really process in the same way in your brain as opposed to feedback that you're getting immediately after. So if you take and you spell these triads and you immediately get the feedback, then it's actually sinking in more to a deeper level. So I've tried to like do retakes, but then like do them immediately so that you're immediately kind of registering what you missed and then able to spit back out kind of a corrected version of that and go through like the error and the correction process like faster, right in the moment. It takes more class time, obviously. I can't just give a speed quiz and then walk out, but I think it's worth it. I'm betting that it's worth it.
As long as you remember to give the speed quiz.
Uh-oh.
Hot take.
Sorry, I used to be your TA, so.
You were a Ben Wrangler then, I guess.
That's right. Totally. And
You
I
have 10
welcomed every
minutes
bit of it.
But I think that brings up such an important thing, is that we get so focused on the content and looking at that course schedule, and we're teaching a course that is in a sequence, so we've got to cover X, Y, and Z so that the next class can go to A1, B1, etc. Right? I wish we would have started early in the alphabet. And so we get hung up on this. All right, well, we have the test or we have this quiz. You hand it back. They see what they did wrong, and then you're like, well, moving on, right? That's
Right.
what we want to do because we have to get to this next thing. But we're missing out on an opportunity to actually help students understand this concept better, because at the same time, you're stacking all this information on top of each other, and if they are weak in these lower areas, of course they're going to be weak in these higher areas. We're kind of fooling ourselves to think that they're not. And so I love hearing about this and taking the time in class, because that's really important so they understand what they've made a mistake on, rather than just zooming ahead to what's next. I mean, have you seen, Amy, benefits like in students' kind of success or achievement, or kind of just understanding or grasping of concepts by kind of taking the time in class to go over their mistakes before launching into new areas?
Yes, I feel like I have, especially because I started doing this with their second test, and we just had the third test, which I went over today. And I didn't have that many part writing issues compared to the first time before I did the first common errors. So between test 2 and test 3, they figured something good out, and they already knew the drill because we've done the common errors. So when I put it up there today, they knew we're ready to do this again. Let's find what's going on. And what helps is, I mean, we've talked about before, like as a field, that error detection is great for like ear training classes and for theory. Like if we can find those parallel fifths and octaves and augmented seconds in a minor key, we're looking for those things. I gave them a little assignment in class one day where I said, okay, here's this progression. I want you to part write it. Don't put your name on it, because I don't want them to be embarrassed, but I wanted to find a way where they could find all of these errors. So they did the part writing, I collected them. Once everybody was done, I shuffled them up, I handed them back out, and I said, okay, the grader, you can put your name at the bottom. So I purposely put the name blank at the bottom so the grader would put their names. We had the grader do that, and I put a rubric up on the doc cam, and I said, this is what I take 2 points off for, this is what I take a point off for, this is what I take a half point off for. So they not only know how I'm grading their homework, but they also know how I would grade their tests and what I'm looking for. And they're like, you look at this stuff for everybody? And I said, yes. And they said, for everybody? How many of these do you have to do? You have to do this all the time. I'm like, yes. That wasn't the point, but it was really fun because I gave them colored pens and they're grading them. They're like, this is terrible. I never want to be a theorist. I'm like, okay, don't go beyond this. I mean, that's not what I was trying to do. But they were grading stuff. They're like, oh man, you have parallel octaves. Or they're grading somebody else and they're like, oh, I put the wrong bass note there on mine. So doing that in class, having them realize like what's going on in their own work and then their peers' work, what kind of mistakes are their peers making, that kind of helps solidify how they're doing themselves. Like, oh, they also put parallel octaves and I thought they were perfect. Well, not perfect. That was a good music theory joke, but I thought they were the perfect student. But they also do parallel octaves in their part writing. So it kind of brings everybody a little bit closer together. This is my 8 a.m. class. Like they are sleepy at first, but we get some activities going and we have a great time. So by doing those common errors together in class before that, once we get to the test, I just put it up there because of course it's a test. I'm not going to give them copies of it, but they can just look at the screen and see what's going on, what's wrong. What did other people make mistakes on that maybe they didn't make mistakes on? Yeah.
That's really good. It reminds me of this activity I've done a few times for part writing where I put them in groups, usually of like 4, maybe 3 or 4, and I have them all be at the board in a certain, part. I'm lucky because I have these like wraparound staff boards in my room, so there's lots of space to put them up there at the board. And then I give them a long progression, and each student writes one chord. So the first student has to, set it up in open or closed position or whatever. And the next student, when they get the marker, they can either explain to the first student why they are changing something in that chord because it's not going to work, or it made a mistake or something like that, or they can write the next chord. And then, you know, when they get to the end, I come up and I'm like, okay, there's a problem here and here. See if you can find it and fix it, that kind of thing. But you're right, that immediate feedback makes such a difference. And it's interesting because they love that activity. You know, they always tell me how much they like to be at the board, and they like, you know, working as a team. That's something we've heard a lot about this generation in particular of students, is they love collaborative work. That's really good.
I've done something like that on paper before, where I had two different papers, but they were the same progression, but they started differently. I had two of them, and I said, okay, one of you go up and the other one go up and write the next chord. Then they sit down, next people came up, wrote the next chord, and I called it like part writing telephone, because you know how you would say something to somebody and it end up being so totally different at the end. If somebody makes a mistake or they have some kind of leap in their part writing, they're going to end up being in the wrong place at the end. So then we go back and look at it on the doc cam and see, okay, what's wrong here? What happened? So yeah, very similar to what's on the board. I like
to
that.
wander around and be like, I think that if I were you, I would fix something in that previous chord and then just go on to the next group.
I'm like, look at this again.
Yeah. So I love you said one of the challenges was to come up with an end of class activity. And I went up for full last year, and the one comment that all of my observers made in my class was something to the effect of, you use every single minute, but when class is over, it's just over. You're like, well, it's 9:50. I know I'm in the middle of a sentence, but have a good day. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. I teach like completely to that last second. And they all were like, maybe you could take like just 1 minute to sort of like review or sum up or have some sort of closing activity. So when you said closing activity, I was like, I need to know what you did.
I think, well, my opening activity that I've done before, you can use as a closing activity. So I brought a bunch of Post-it notes to class one day. This is in Theory 1 last semester. I said the leading tone resolves blank and the seventh resolves blank. And so I said, I would say as an exit activity, you can't leave until you show me your blank. And it's a sticky note in a particular color, so they can put it on their notes, because I give them handouts every class. So they have like folders and notebooks. They can put the sticky note on their notebook or whatever. And then the ticket is basically, it's called an exit ticket. So they have to show me what it is that they know. Like, oh, the leading tone resolves up, the seventh has to resolve down. Okay, you're good. Like, that's hypothetically what I would do. I actually did it as an opening activity to kind of get us into a little summary review before we get into the new material for the day. But I think it could work both ways. And then if I do it again, maybe I'll use a different color sticky note, so they're like taking those colors into account. Like, oh, when I'm on the test, the yellow one said that the leading tone resolved up, and the blue one said that I need to avoid augmented seconds or something. Yeah,
That's good. You can use that. Good. Not Monday because I'm giving a test, but Wednesday.
Do your common errors.
Yes. No, I right away was like, that's such a good plan. I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's that kernel, right? Ben, you always talk about the kernel, right?
I love the kernel
of what the takeaway is of that class, and that's the kernel of the day, and they have to recite it back or show you it before they leave. I love that. I love that. As you've been working with this cohort, you mentioned how they're from faculty members from all across the disciplines at the university. How have you learned things from faculty from other fields about their teaching, and have you been able to incorporate anything you've learned kind of from anybody from biology or political science or things like that? Has that been helpful for you to kind of think outside of the box in your own teaching at all?
I think I've only been able to attend one of the sessions, so they're broken up into like teaching and research or research service, those kind of things, and I've missed a couple of them already this semester. So the one teaching one that we did, it was write on sticky notes. All of the issues or the excuses you get about, or what was it, for grades, I think? I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, what are some things that take a lot of time or something. And so we wrote on sticky notes like grading, that kind of stuff. And they were talking about balance in your research and your work life. And so like all of the sticky notes she was reading off, those can apply to everybody in the room, no matter what your degree or what your major was. We also did one for grading. I just can't remember exactly what it was about the grading that we talked about, but something similar. We talked about grading, and we wrote things down on sticky notes, and they ended up being like the same problems. Like, I don't have enough time to do this, or they're all making mistakes like this, or, you know. So it was definitely relatable, but I haven't really been able to interact with anybody in a while because all of our schedules are so different. Like, I only see certain people here and there, and then some of them might not come the days that I come, and I don't go the days that they go. So, yeah.
Yeah, especially as we're at this point in the semester, everyone's kind of just surviving and trying to make it to the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't even go to the next one because I have a music thing.
And so, you know, how has your, you know, first year on tenure track been? You know, it is a transition from, you know, grad student to, you know, contingent faculty. Then you are full time and you have all these other things you have to do. You know, you can't just teach, and you have to do scholarship, and you also have service. So how has that transition been for you?
Yeah, actually, I'm non-tenure track, so I have a balance of teaching and service. I don't have to do the research, but I am kind of working on that because I feel like research is important. Because if you want to teach certain things in your class, like I want to diversify the music that I'm teaching in my class. Like, I'm Hispanic. I want to put out more Tejano music, mariachi music, that kind of stuff. But there's not a lot of research done on that. So that's on me if I want to bring that into my room. I got to make that happen. I got to figure it out. So I am working on something like that right now for research. It's not going to count towards my job in any way, but it will help impact my teaching at some point. So that's the kind of the view that I'm taking of it. But yeah, the first year has been a whirlwind so far. The best thing that came out of it, though, after, you know, graduating, not being a student anymore, I'm still at the same place where I was an adjunct. So I know faculty, I know the students, I know the building and everything. But now that some of my time is freed up from being between two universities this whole time, I've been able to play my clarinet, and I haven't played in like 12 years. I'm playing in my first senior recital. I didn't even play in one when I was an undergrad.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's been really good. For me, playing again is a way to connect with my students because they are so performance focused here at UTA. I really just want to connect with them a little bit more. I even had a student in my Theory 2 class, that 8 a.m. class, I'm telling you. They raised their hand before class. They said, like, it's not a theory question, but can I ask you something? I was like, yeah. She's like, do you tongue at the tip of your reed? She's a clarinet player.
Clarinet
like,
articulation question.
You know what? I don't know. I said, I'll play this weekend and I'll let you know. And I finally answered her back because I don't focus on that. That's not my area of expertise. But it was a really cool question, and it just made my day to be able to connect to them in a different way besides just theory. I don't want them to leave here thinking that, oh, theory's so boring and it's pointless, whatever. Like, if I can teach theory and still be a performer, then you can be a performer and still like theory and do theory and use it in your careers. Yeah.
For sure. Music making is so refreshing.
Yeah.
I just said before we started recording today that the number one comment I like to give for teaching feedback is, it needs to be less music talking and more music making. It seems to just be a general principle that keeps coming back, and we're all here because we do enjoy music making, ultimately, you know. And yes, the theorists of us, we enjoy music talking as well. But overall, when you get in front of a class, it seems like music making is a thing that engages, you know, it gets people doing the thing instead of just talking about doing the thing. And it's just so exciting to do that. You just see students come alive when they're making music. It's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, there was a one time I was TAing for Ben, and he had a whole little jazz combo set up to come play Autumn Leaves or something. If you're talking about sequences,
Yeah.
it was
Autumn
amazing.
Leaves, All the Things You Are, anything that has a falling fist, which is like a lot of the percentage of the real book. I don't know. It's a stat that I don't know, but there's so many sequences in there. It's easy to have a jazz group come up and play, and you can talk about it. And how does that affect improvisation?
It was just so good because it just kind of changed the monotony of our everyday lives. You know, like, oh, we get a live jazz performance today in theory. Like, that was just amazing. Yeah. Practice.
I try to avoid singing in class, but I had to the other day, and my students were like, "Oh, Dr. Graff, no, that was so good. That was so good." I said, "Stop! You're just trying to humor me. I'm not going to raise your grade because you're complimenting me on my tone of voice. I know that it's bad."
Yeah, I mean, but I think when students hear us play or sing or something, I mean that I don't know, it connects with them in a deeper way, even if, you know, our singing voice isn't good. I mean, I tell my students I am paid a lot of things in music, to do things in music. I'm paid a lot of, to do a lot of different things. Singing is not one of them, right? But, you know, if they can see that you can sing and you enjoy making music, and that's a way of connecting to them. I remember a student after class, because I'm a pianist, started talking to me about piano technique and why she's having issues with her, you know, her technique and some like pain in her hand. And I was like, well, if you talk to your piano teacher and things like that. But so, I mean, I was able to kind of give her some thoughts and things like that. But I think that's one neat thing that you touched on, Amy, is this kind of connection with the community at your school as someone who's full-time, and you can be there and invested, and you're not having to split time between multiple schools or things like that. That is such a neat part, and you're kind of a part of not just those students' lives in that 1 hour, right? But you're like, oh, you see them at concerts, you can go to their recitals and things like that, and you get to see them mature, right, as, you know, 8 o'clock freshmen, right, to, you know, to graduating and things like that. And so I think that's just such a neat part of what we get to do, right?
Yeah. Currently, I'm trying to get them even more involved on my side of things. I'm finally taking Jenny Beaver's initiative and starting a theory club here. And we have our first event today. Our one graduate student who's about to graduate, Ben and I are on his thesis committee right now. He's going to present to our theory club as part of our first inaugural meeting. And I think I'm just really proud of like how that worked out. Like, he gets practice at presenting, and the theory students get to see something beyond just our basic, here's what this sequence is, here's what this chord is in class. Like, they get to see it synthesized into one work. And I think it's something that's going to really interest them, because he talks a little bit more about what's going on in the music and whose voice represents this. And I'm just really excited to get that started. And I took a poll, and interestingly enough, like, they seem really interested to have like guests talk about their compositions or theory. They're excited about, they're very interested in learning how to teach music theory, which I found surprising. Yeah. So our next session, whenever I get that up, hopefully this month, I have a little list for them on what my basic things for theory pedagogy. It's what I teach in my theory pedagogy class. The visual, audio, and kinesthetic. I'm going to apply those in a worksheet, and like, here's how you can learn. How do you apply this to music theory? What kinds of things do you do? Part writing for kinesthetic, listening to music for audio, that kind of thing. And then how can what kind of activities do we want to pull from that to do for these theory topics? Cadential 6/4, non-chord tones, that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to get that going. And because my load is more geared towards teaching, this is just another way of getting me involved with the students and have them excited and hopefully enroll in some of our theory grad classes, because undergrads are allowed to enroll in our grad classes here. So I'm hoping like some of them will be really interested in moving forward beyond the theory sequence.
So what is your student population like at UTA? What are the majors, that kind of thing?
like our majors. One of our bigger majors right now that we're still trying to build up is music industry studies / music business. So we're working on building that a little bit in this area. We have, of course, performance. We have, we don't have a music theory undergrad, but we do have a master's degree. So we're always looking for students for that master's degree. We have music ed. We actually offer a music ed class or music ed degree online, like completely online. So that way students can teach during the day and then take an online class at night. Sometimes it's not in person. Sometimes it's synchronous or sometimes it's asynchronous. So, but it's all online. Yeah. We have about 435 graduate and undergraduate students in our music department. Yeah. So it's a really good size. Yeah. Our ratio of students for music theory is very metered. We start with 10 for each across the board, and as we start to add more students and they start registering, we bring it up to 15 and we bring it up to 20. So we pretty much typically end up being at a 20-to-1 ratio in our music classes.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Especially when you have to grade all of those things.
Yes. It's even across the board. Yeah.
I do remind them of that from time to time. What you did once, I do 16 times. So
exactly. See, and
stop complaining.
If they do error detection during class, then they'll realize, oh, you have to do all of this.
That's true.
All the time.
Right.
So yeah, our students are wonderful. They're very hardworking. A lot of them work full-time jobs to help with their families. We have a lot of non-traditional students. Some are married, some have kids, some are coming back after a long time. So we try to be flexible. I mean, we do instill time management, but of course things come up and we're a little bit flexible for that. So we allow that within our attendance policies for sure. Yeah,
that's good. And then lots of commuters at UT Arlington, right?
Yes, lots of commuters. Yeah.
So 8 a.m. you probably get the occasional "I'm stuck in traffic" message.
I do, and then I say, "Oh, that's okay. I teach that same class at 1 o'clock. Why don't you come then?"
There you go.
There you go.
And they do. I actually got an email this morning. I can't make it on time because I'm in traffic, but can I come to your 1 p.m.? I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because I'm going to go over the same thing.
I had a student one time that missed my 8:30 Theory 2. And then I said the same thing you did, Amy. I'll just come at 11 o'clock and teach it again at 11. And then afterwards, they came to office hour and said, I really kind of like the 11 o'clock, and then could I just come to your 11 o'clock? And I said, well, yeah, but you also got to come to the 8:30. For the remainder of the term, they came to the 8:30 and the 11 o'clock Theory 2.
Oh, my God.
And I said, I really appreciated kind of that second time through. It really just sunk in a little bit more. And I thought, wow, I've never had a person in the history of my teaching that has come to an extra theory class every time.
Wow. That's like
and this person is a very talented composer who's going to grad school at Bowling Green now, and I really am proud of what they've done, and was just so impressed. I was just so floored by that they would come to the extra class time.
That's almost like a compliment to you and your teaching. Like it's so good that they want to see it twice.
or it's so confusing.
Right. I was about to say, I interpreted it the opposite way, that it wasn't good enough the first time. It required another class period, another 50-minute session.
It's okay. I've been your witness. I think it's the first one.
I appreciate that.
So, as one thing I always like to ask is, how much do you feel like you were prepared in your graduate work for the job of being a theory professor? Because so much of our graduate work is research and studying particular things. And shout out to Bowling Green State University. That's where I got my master's in composition, so he's going to do great. But I was thinking about my degrees. Most of my graduate degrees are in composition. I never took one class in composition pedagogy. not one. I did take 2 theory pedagogy classes at UNT. But how do you feel like you were prepared for the actual job that you're in with your graduate work? And not to call out any names or anything like that, but like, how do you feel?
Yeah, I don't think my theory pedagogy classes that I took were super relevant. Some of them were. I actually took 2 theory pedagogy classes. The second one that I took was very relevant because we did do textbook reviews and talked about, like, let's compare how this textbook compares to this textbook. So textbooks are really important for if you're choosing it. But if you come to a university where it already is established with a textbook, then you pretty much just have to deal with what you have, whether you like it or not, right? Luckily, I like mine, so it worked out just fine. But yeah, it's I feel like it is more research heavy. We're constantly writing papers in grad school. We don't really do any kind of service either, so it didn't really prepare you for the service aspect of it, like working with other people. Not that I didn't have that problem. I think like maybe going to conferences was helpful, like because you can network with people and talk to people. It would be the same thing if you're talking to people like in your own department or your own school of music. But for theory pedagogy, this is going to sound really strange. This is my secret. Aside from watching Ben and observing Ben, I did steal the handout idea from him, and I did steal, like, let's do that class activity at the end. But I became like a certified group exercise instructor in 2019. So that's about the time I started writing my dissertation. That helped me get through it. So in that certification, it's a whole weekend. I actually missed TSMT to go to it. And I had to. It was only that weekend. I had to be there 100%. So the main things that they talked about in that is what I just mentioned earlier. You have visual learners, you have audio learners, you have kinesthetic. And when we're doing exercises for this class, it's all pre-choreographed, so I have to learn the choreography. I have to do it with them. I have to give verbal cues, and I have to show them what I'm doing. I show them the wrong way, which is like error detection, and I show them the right way to do it. If we're doing a deadlift, you don't want to hunch your shoulders over and round out your back. You want to keep the shoulders back, and you want to stay nice and straight. So those are kind of the verbal cues, which on a podcast, you can only get the verbal cues. But hopefully you're able to picture that, right? Because of the verbal cues. And that's where I got most of my theory pedagogy from. I'm like, this could apply to theory. It's a future paper of mine. I just haven't really sorted it all out, how it could relate to exercise. Because we move in music, we talk in music, we sing, we play things, and we listen to things. It's very similar to the exercise industry as well. And so I took what I knew about that, and I also took what I had for my my comps exams at UNT with my dissertation advisor, Dr. Ellen Bacalina. And I remember specifically when I went in to defend my theory pedagogy section, she's like, well, how would you teach that? And I said, well, I need to show them this, and which was like, well, maybe I shouldn't give it away in case they're listening, unless the answers have changed. I'd show them this, I would demonstrate this, I would play this. She's like, good, because you need all 3 of those aspects. And that clicked for me, like, oh, in exercise we have those 3 things, visual, audio, kinesthetic. She's mentioning to me the same things that I had just told her. And so I found that connection in music theory. And that's essentially what has prepared me for teaching here. It's given me, I said AQ gave me confidence. Teaching in front of a bunch of random people that I don't know who I'm going to get every single time in an exercise class, that has prepared me for different people coming in and out of my classroom. The luxury here is that I get to keep the same people in every class here, but I don't know what I'm going to get in an exercise classroom. I don't know if I'm going to get somebody new that doesn't know the moves, and I have to keep teaching them, and I have to be more specific because they don't know what's going on. So I take that in my classrooms too. If I have a student that missed last time, like this past time, he sent me a picture of him with his flat tire and a thumbs up. And he missed learning about OPCI and UPCI in Theory 4. And so I was talking and like reviewing with the class, and he just looked so confused. And so I took it back a little bit, and I went back to explaining it very detailed. Like, he is one of the people that came into my exercise class that's never taken that class before. I explained it very specifically. This is what you do here. This is what you do there. And then when I had them work by themselves, I went up to him again and said, how are you supposed to do OPCI? And I had him tell me. How are you supposed to do UPCI? And I had him tell me. And so then he worked on a problem by himself. He got it right. I'm like, there you go. So it was like just a quick little mini lesson to help catch him up. And I know you can't do that with everybody, especially if you have over 100 students in your class. But you do that when they come to your office hours too. You help catch them up. And so all of those things are really important for theory pedagogy. It just really relates back to group exercise for me.
That's really cool. I think it works the other way too. I often will give what I call like a flex. So I'll put a bunch of questions on the board they're supposed to answer, and then one of them I'll put stars by and be like, that's the flex. So if you're struggling, skip that one. If these feel easy for you, do these couple that are kind of harder, right? Just to see what happens, you know? And some of them are like, I never do the flex. I'm like, that's fine. You know, that's okay. But yeah, it works both ways. Sometimes you got to, you know, catch that kid who missed something. And sometimes you got to catch that kid who's like, I've been doing this since AP theory in high school. And, you know, I'm trying to find the nugget that's new. So, yeah.
I like that you name it flex. So they know exactly what you're talking about. Like, that's some kind of correspondence, a connection that you build with your students. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think there needs to be a Ben Graff and Amy Hatch exercising workout session the morning of TSMT. You know, like 7 o'clock. Dr. Hatch and Graff. You can work out do some cardio, and then you can work out your brain later on. And
they can yoga or something.
Yes.
They can run with Ben and then lift weights with me.
That's true. Definitely more of a cardio guy. No matter how much I work out, I don't gain.
Hey, that's funny. I work out and I don't lose.
That's great.
Genetics are a huge factor.
Yeah. Well, this has been a treat to chat with you and to hear about all your successes UT Arlington. And so before we go, though, we like to do a little rapid fire. It's like a mini comps, right? That's kind of what it is, right? We just, you don't know what's going to come, right?
Nope, it's not that stressful.
A lot less stressful. Low stakes.
Okay.
And so just you're just hot take on whatever we ask. Jenn or Ben, do you have a question off the top?
I do. I'm ready.
Okay, go for it.
So what is a Tejano or mariachi piece that you have used in class, if you've used one?
Yes, I have actually. Just a second. Actually, I used No Me Quede Más by Selena. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a great way to get them looking. There's no written music. It's just lyrics with the pop chord symbols above it. And that had an example of a minor 3, and it had like 6 going to 3. So I had them listen to it and follow along with the lyrics, place themselves in a key, which we had to figure out what was the key. What do we keep going to? What feels like a 5? Because sometimes there'd be a 7 on there. I'm like, does that feel like a 5-7? How can we figure out the key? Once we figure out a key, then I have them listen to it, follow along, and I want them to think about what the Roman numerals are as they're going through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's great.
That's awesome. My question was going to be, what is your favorite level of theory to teach and why?
Oh, no. Well, I'm like 100% happy right now because I have 2 and 4, but I guess I would have to choose 4 because I love blowing their minds when we start putting numbers on notes and I put them on 12 up there. I feel like I have the most amount of ideas for that class. I could be super creative with that one. I put like sticky notes up on the board, like those reusable ones. So I put 0 through 11, and then I put all of them in the note names. So I put them up before class. They can look at them. And when I ask them, like, what's the distance from 1 to 7? And they can look at the clock, 6. Like, it's super easy, and it helps them keep that in their minds. And then, of course, I added the dice in this year so we could practice, like, normal form, like, quickly. So I really like that I could be creative in that class, and 20th century music is my specialty, so I just have a ball. And I feel like some of the students that don't get tonal harmony as quickly, they were answering so fast today. Like, they're getting this, and that just makes me really happy. Like, they found their niche. Yeah.
That's cool. Totally.
Once they learn that they can write parallel fifths, they're like, I'm in.
Exactly.
My question is, what is your favorite kinesthetic activity in theory or oral skills?
So I would say kinesthetic, besides just like taking them through part writing and asking them, okay, what do you want to put in the tenor? What do you want to put in the alto? And having them write along with me, I would say like games. I've been doing like Kahoots as test reviews lately. Some of those are really hard to put in Kahoots, but I put like examples up there, and they see the colors and they are able to answer like on their phones. You know, they love to use their phones, so like let's do it. Let's make a good use out of it. So they get to like tap on the right answer. I've done games in Theory 1 like Heads Up. I didn't get to it last semester, but I did it last year, where I put like dominant 7th chord on it, and they have to hold it up, and the other students have to explain it to them.
Oh, I love that.
And then they have to guess what it is. So I think that would be the most kinesthetic, besides just like your day-to-day part writing, because to me part writing is pretty kinesthetic.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've used some Kahoots for kind of review and things like that, and students enjoy it generally. And
They
then
do.
I did it a couple of weeks ago, and they all signed in as Dr. Thomas. And so all of them were Dr. Thomas in there. So
I can see
ended
mine
up
doing
winning.
that, except for Mr. Theory Man.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Theory Man's
That's
my
funny.
caricature that I use in
right.
class.
Yes.
For those that don't know.
Oh,
I
that's great.
remember.
So as we wrap up, maybe you could let our listeners know a little bit about how they can find you online if you want to be found,
Sure.
and what kind of things are you working on maybe over the summer or maybe next year?
Yeah, that's great. I'm currently working on that book chapter again it's like a digital book that's going to come out about conjunto music, and mine is the only theory article in there, because there's no theory articles that I found that talk about this subject, since it's not written down. I've also been working on lots of short little concept videos for music theory. I made like 10 videos in the last 5 days. It's been back to back to back. That way I could just say, they could just pull it up on YouTube or TikTok, and they can find like, oh, I need a review of arpeggiated 6/4 chords, either this semester or for whenever they do their proficiency exam later down the road. They can go back and look at it, and hopefully it's not like analysis, like, it's just showing them all the details, how to get there, and then it'll hopefully just be more of a refresher for them. So I've been working on those. I'm going to continue working on Theory Club and restructuring some of my syllabi, because as talked about in the AQ module, one of our last modules was about liquid syllabi. So that would be when you put it online, and that way they have mobile access to it. It was said in the AQ module, I don't remember what the source was for it. I can get that information to you later if you'd like. But they said that research has shown that Hispanic and Black students typically use their phones more than any other devices. So if we can make a liquid syllabi something that's mobile friendly, that they can go and say, oh, here's the course schedule there, here's all of the attendance information, grading information that's on their phones, then they'll be more successful and more inclusive in that class. It's a syllabi equity, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try working on that for at least one of my classes next semester and see how that goes. Of course, I'll do the regular paper syllabus that I have to upload, but I'm going to start working on those as well, and then continue working on getting some theory club stuff together for the fall and really honing it in for next year. You can contact me at my email, amy.hatch@UTA. I also have a YouTube channel that I've just gone public on. It's at Dr. Hatch Music Theory, all lowercase, no spaces. And on TikTok too. I'm not going to follow you back though, but it's my professional account at Dr. Hatch 8. And that's where I post all of my videos for. That's what I use to post my videos for theory topics.
You just made it to the end of another episode of Note Doctors, the music theory and pedagogy podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review the podcast, and you can always reach us at notedoctorspodcast@gmail.com with comments, questions, or show ideas. Thanks for listening.